Greetings everyone, this is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We are talking about the week of August 15th, 2022 this time around. So we're going to pick up right where we left off last week. I'm sure you watched last week's video and you're still talking about what a fabulous, fabulous video it was, thinking about the moon passing near the planets. And we left it on the night of the 14th, Sunday night, with the moon very near Jupiter. So the moon it was about 85% full that evening. But if you wait until after midnight, the morning of the 15th, that gets us into this week it's coming up, the moon has actually even closed on Jupiter more. So in the morning of the 15th, for me, let's say 3 in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning, the moon will be even closer to Jupiter for me here in the middle of the United States. And they'll be making a fabulous pairing. So we want to start the week right where we left it off last week with the waning moon still pretty close to full near Jupiter. If we jump ahead 4 days, so the evening of the 18th, that's Thursday night, into Friday morning. So we're really talking about Friday morning. So now the moon is sitting just above Mars. It's within a couple of degrees of Mars, so this makes a really fine pairing. Mars is bright, Jupiter's bright, the moon's bright. You don't need binoculars, you don't need a telescope to see these things. These make great pairings in the sky to be able to see. And so it's within a couple of degrees here. This whole region of the sky for me rises just about midnight. So right about midnight this is rising. So as we approach midnight on the evening of the 18th, for it to get high enough in the sky to really be able to see well, probably want to wait until about 1 in the morning on the 19th. So anytime 12:30 on the night of the 18th into Friday morning the 19th until it gets too light to see, this is going to be a fine pairing of Mars with the moon. Now, we've talked about this before. We like to think about geometry and what the geometry of the solar system, the geometry of the universe, the geometry of the galaxy, the geometry of whatever, the universe is stretching it a little bit, but the geometry of whatever sort of gives rise to what we see. So we're sitting in the middle of something, looking out, and the pattern that we see is due to the geometry of the system. And so you think about the sun, and you think about the Earth orbiting the sun, and the other planets orbiting the sun, and they all have slight tilts, so their orbits aren't flat. We're not exactly in a plane, and so if we're here, the other planets might be tilted up and down just a couple of degrees, just a few degrees, but enough that they're higher or lower in the sky relative to one another. And the moon, its orbit's tilted about 6 degrees or something, so its orbit's tilted up a little bit like that as well. So everything's got a little bit of tilt to it. And I want you to think about that as you watch this week, as the moon is sitting below Jupiter in the sky. So you get up on, look in the evening of the 14th into the morning of the 15th, and you say, wow, that's a nice bright dot above the moon, and that bright dot is Jupiter. By the time you get to Mars, the moon's now only about 50% full. So the moon's about half full at this morning of the 19th, and you can say, oh, look at that, that's a nice bright dot below the moon. So now you can picture that geometry to say, oh, I see that when I'm looking at the moon, I'm going to see Jupiter just a little bit above it, and I'm going to see Mars just a little bit below it. So sort of picture the tilt of those orbits as this thing moves along there. So great, that's one fun thing. It's always fun to think about geometry. I don't know why you're not. I've told you this before, that one of the learning goals in the astronomy class that we teach is to sort of hone our geometrical imagination, we call it. So thinking geometrically like you and I were just doing here now. So fantastic, fantastic stuff. So enjoy this on the morning of the 19th. But just above there is the Pleiades. And we've talked about open star clusters a lot. We love open star clusters. As we think about geometry, open star clusters, whoa, look at that fire and that chalk out there. We think about geometry of the galaxy. Open star clusters live in the disk of the galaxy, where all the young stars live. And so on, and I don't know, there's a One Republic song called All the Right Moves, maybe? That's what I was singing, All the Young Stars, never mind. Now I'm thinking about a David Bowie song, All the Young Dudes. Is that what? Anyway, there you go. Go out and Google all of these things. And you know what's going on in my mind? Why I can't actually talk about astronomy for any length of time because my mind's sort of weird, making all kinds of strange connections all over the place. But we see these open star clusters along here. The Pleiades is maybe the most famous open star cluster of all. Now I'm singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So there you go. And so the Pleiades is a really famous open star cluster. It's close enough to us that we can see the individual stars big and bright without binoculars or without a telescope. So you want to enjoy that with the moon right there. This is about 2 degrees and a few more degrees up that direction to the Pleiades. Now, if we stretch this out, we see Mars here. So this is the same. We're still looking at the same region of the sky, just expanded it out over here. So this is now, draw a line through there to say, okay, let's map that off, if we will. There's Mars. So I've just moved Mars down here. It hasn't actually moved. But so now you're looking at Mars here. Mars is a nice bright orange planet. So the red planet, you can see this red dot in the sky easily enough. If you move about 11.5 degrees over to the east from Mars, so that's about a fist width at arm's length, maybe a little bit more than a fist width at arm's length. If you hold that out, you say, about that distance that you see. You come to another bright object, Aldebaran, Arabic, the eye of the bull. So the bull's eye right here, Aldebaran in Taurus, is nice and orange star. And then you move about twice as far, about 21.5 degrees, so a couple of fist widths out there at arm's length, like that. And you get from Aldebaran, you get to Betelgeuse, the big bright shoulder star in Orion that a lot of people are familiar with. And so you see these bright red objects in the morning sky. So take a moment to appreciate that. The wonderful coloring of Mars, Aldebaran, and Betelgeuse, the orange-red hue that we have across the morning sky here. So this is all great. If you go up the other direction, if that's about 11.5 degrees, that's about 21.5 degrees. We move up this direction, we're talking about 31 degrees, 31.5, 31.75 degrees. From Mars, you've gone up past the Pleiades, up past the moon, past the Pleiades, up that direction. The first bright star, the brightest star you come to up that direction is Mirfak, and the heart of Perseus. And we looked at Perseus a couple of weeks ago, so go back and look at that if you want to, where we were talking about Perseus. Perseus looks like a J with a couple strands of legs here, and that J points at the back of Cassiopeia. I see that I've messed up my Cassiopeia there by, I don't know what I was doing. Nobody knows what I was doing. And so there's Cassiopeia here, and pointing up at the back of Cassiopeia. Boy, that's really messed up. Let's just start all over. So you point up at the back of Cassiopeia, and it looks like a W with this side lying down a little bit weakly. And so there's your W. And right at the back of Cassiopeia, where you point to there, is a double star cluster, another open star cluster that lives in the plane of our galaxy that you can see here. Let's point out one more open star cluster. That one you can see a lot of times if you've got a really dark sky. You can see it without any optical aid, but binoculars help you a lot right there. So you want to see that with binoculars. Remember the Pleiades, you should be able to see. It's sometimes called the Seven Sisters. See, a lot of people can see 7 stars. A lot of people can only see 6 individual stars brightly without any optical aid. With binoculars, you can see a whole bunch of stars in there, or it's a small telescope. If you've got a small telescope, you need a really wide-angle field of view. You need a really low-power eyepiece in there. So if you take the strand stars down this direction, so the legs, you've got a couple of stars, and then you've got a couple of brighter stars. So if you go down the right leg, the westernmost leg, and you get to the brighter star at the base, just to the west of that is another open star cluster, M34. That one you can't see. That without any optical aid. Binoculars under good dark skies, you'll probably see it with binoculars. A telescope's going to help you out a lot. So see if you can take your telescope or your binoculars and find M34. So look at the double cluster. We looked at that a couple weeks ago. Now look at open star cluster M34 and enjoy the open star cluster, the Pleiades. Look at your red stars with red Mars. That's a fine limerick. The red stars with red Mars, and then enjoy the moon near Jupiter and Mars again as it's waning this week. So that's what we got for you this week. I hope you have clear skies, everybody. I hope you have a great week ahead. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll have more for you next week.